Good day, teachers, mentors, advisors. My name is Abu-Bakr Al-Shabazz. I'm a historian in Black and African history, and I run the first Black and History Studies program at Cardiff University from 2009. I'm also a trained psychotherapist, and I was also an educational consultant on the New Welsh curriculum, looking to incorporate into the new curriculum Black, Asian and minority histories. And what I'm here today is to show you that we are here to help, to assist, because it's really important that this is implemented all around Wales, and you may be a bit skeptical about some of the things or the approaches or the methods you're going to use, but I assure you that everyone here is here to help. The first thing I'd like to mention is looking at what is known as TESA in the teaching industry, teachers' expectations and students' achievement. And we know as instructors and teachers that the higher the expectation is of teachers is the higher that those students from all those different communities would excel within our classroom. One of the unfortunate realities with the initial teacher training programs, which many of you have engaged in over the years, is that there seems to be too much focus when they're looking at Black, Asian and minority ethnic groups, looking at low educational attainments, as well as exclusion rates. And then one of the unfortunate realities for many of you who come from communities where there's a lack of BAME representation, some of these stereotypical and labeling factors come into the teaching profession, unfortunately, actually adding to those stereotypes. Over the last few months, I've interviewed many different students from the Newport area, and some of the perspectives which they gave me in the interviews were quite intriguing. What I felt that they all had in common is that they had different experiences in their primary and secondary school. Some of it was positive in primary school, but not so positive in secondary, vice versa, etc. But one of the things is that the urban circle, along with other voluntary groups, help them to manage themselves and to build themselves into positive individuals to go on to college and then later university.
So if I was trying to explain to a teacher about something that would happen to me because of, I don't know, maybe my race or my religion or where I come from, they wouldn't be able to understand. I think they'd be able to sympathise, but they wouldn't know exactly what to do in that situation because they haven't been through it.
I know many young people, they get told, oh, you're not going to go far in life, you're not going to do well. And that just makes you think, oh, okay, you're meant to be supporting me and helping me, and you're telling me that I'm not going to go far and do well.
I think it was more in primary school. You had those days where it would be like World Day, so my mum would come in and cook food, you know, and you would learn about different cultures and their different foods. But it was mainly in primary school that you would have that, never in high school. Like, the only thing I know is when my granddad came over from the Windrush, it was no pigs, no dogs and no Irish. And I want to know more about why and how that came into place. Oh yeah, this happened, this, no. Explain the full reason why and how it changed until now.
On the 19th of March 2021, the Education Minister, Miss Kirsty Williams, identified from the working group from the Welsh Assembly Government, there was 51 recommendations which was put forward, which was accepted, which made Black, Asian and minority ethnic histories compulsory throughout the whole curriculum from the ages of 3 to 16. Some of you as teachers are going to have a lot of challenges because many of you have not been exposed to any of this literature. Unfortunately, some of the resources out there are pretty poor, because if you're looking at the Black, Asian, minority ethnic perspective within the curriculum, there seems to be a large focus on the American experience. But what I can assure you that the Welsh experience is going to be centered along with those minority ethnic groups from Black and Asian communities will be part of that experience. We're looking to make a holistic perspective throughout the whole curriculum in order to make every person, irrespective of their ethnicity or race, a full citizen.
I think that they should maybe educate themselves with the students especially, because they obviously know if they go through it and stuff like talking to students are like, or tell the students, how can I make you guys comfortable in a class? Maybe if they're speaking about like a touchy subject or something. But yeah.
I'll say I was more indoctrinated in primary school, to be honest. Like I thought, oh, if I get good grades, I'm a good person. That's all I need in life. Wherever in high school, you're exposed to more reality. And like you see the disparity of your home life in high school and the different like influences that has upon you.
I feel like kids are definitely influenced from a young age, the things around them, the things they learn, see and hear. So I think introducing that from a young age will really help that young person's attitude towards people of colour and everything else. Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It'll stop them from being ignorant, and I think that's the main thing, is education, like always educating yourself.
I feel like if you're going to teach someone on their own race, you need to like set yourself a standard of being educated in that area. You can't, like a maths teacher wouldn't start teaching maths without knowing the subject fully. So if you're going to teach someone about Black history, you need to know Black history fully and just educate yourself really, because if you're not educated in the area, you can't have a situation where the students are teaching you like and they're correcting you, because other students, like white students, may be thinking like, oh, if she doesn't even know what she's talking about, or if he doesn't know, then surely there's no legitimacy behind it. So they need to know what they're actually talking about.
One of the other things that we're looking to achieve is coping strategies and mechanisms for teachers. So to have people like myself and others come into your schools and give you the relevant information in how you can blend all this information of the Black, Asian and minority ethnic perspective within the curriculum. And also to allow ourselves to elaborate further on the objectives in which the Welsh Government have put forward. One of the other initiatives which I'm looking to do within the schools throughout Wales is also to develop a course, a continued professional development on cultural competence. Because I think this is really important in order to gear you teachers up in order to establish a more effective form of instruction or pedagogy throughout the whole educational system, with this major change taking place in 2022. One of the aspects of cultural competence is what I refer to as DVD, which is diversity and variety equals difference. This gives a notion of this idiosyncratic element of individuals as well as their culture, because no two people or two cultures are the same. One of the aspects in order to identify elements of cultural competence is looking at the social constructs which many sociologists have put together, such as language, which is verbal and non-verbal forms of communication, looking at different belief systems, whether people are religious or not, looking at values, morals, norms, customs, as well as mores. All of these factors are intrinsically part of everyday culture and everyday experience of people, such as yourselves as teachers and such as us as pupils or students within the educational system.
One of my teachers told me, actually, you're more likely to get a job if in the reference they say speak Welsh. As in Wales right now, where we were taught obviously the British culture and the Welsh culture, I think it'd be good for kids to learn about culture from different minorities, not minorities, ethnicities as well. So it will help both ways. I reckon it just work with a benefit to everyone.
I attended a Welsh nursery, same as my siblings, and then Welsh primary school and then Welsh secondary school. Like by sending me to a Welsh school, you'd have more opportunities in life. You'd be able to do more things, so job-wise, which should have benefited me. Yeah, and just being able to speak 2 languages, it just makes sense. We live in Wales. We should all be able to speak Welsh, not just English.
Right, what has been established by the Welsh Assembly Government as far as the new curriculum is concerned is what they refer to as the areas of learning and experiences, and there are 6. The first of these will look at expressive arts. So we're looking at art, we're looking at digital technology, So that's just giving you a small example of what will be detailed within expressive arts. Then we have the aspect of health and well-being. And this is looking to make a holistic perspective of students or pupils in the educational system. So many of you have done the PSE programs will understand the type of direction in which the government and the educational system needs to go in order to create holistic pupils within the classroom setting. The other areas of learning is looking at humanities, and that will be amalgamation of different subject areas such as history, geography, philosophy, politics and law. The other one is looking at literacy and communication, and obviously we'll look at the Welsh language as being a primary source within the educational system. We'll also look at English, and there'll be other languages which will look at a multilingual and bilingual perspective. So those communities which are from so-called BAME groups, their languages will be incorporated somewhat within this particular lesson. Then there's the aspect of mathematics and numeracy. So if we're going to be looking at how we're going to amalgamate BAME histories within this, we can look at some of the ancient civilizations as an example, looking at the architectural designs, such as looking at the pyramids, looking at temples, observatories, etc., looking at those measurements and amalgamating that or blending that within this particular section of the areas of learning and experience. And the last one is looking at science and technology. This is more situated looking at STEM. So we're looking at physics, chemistry and biology as an example. And what this program will do is for you as teachers to look at maybe innovators and inventors from the Black, Asian and minority ethnic communities and look at what they have brought about in order to advance the technological advancements of these particular sciences. So for example, if you look at the humanities program within the areas of learning and experience, just say for instance we're looking at the subject history. How can that be taught if we're looking at it from a Black history perspective as an example? Orlando Patterson, who was a Jamaican sociologist, said there were three main approaches in which Black history is taught within the Western world. The first one is looking at contributionism, but unfortunately that has been something which has been reduced or eradicated to a large extent. So for instance, if we're looking at things like ancient Egypt, ancient Carthage, Sumeria, all these were dark people civilizations. So they can be a new approach within the new curriculum, centering and putting the Asian perspective into account. The unfortunate reality with schools up and down England and Wales over the last 30 to 40 years who have attempted to teach Black history within the educational system, especially the history lessons, they seem to focus on slavery. However, Black and African people's history do not start in slavery. As DNA evidence have shown, if you go back 90,000 to 200,000 years ago, the first people to march out of Africa were dark-skinned and they're the oldest people on the earth. And they didn't start off their existence or cultural development as slaves. So this is an important factor to put into our scope or understanding or our lesson plans when we're constructing our history lesson. The other aspect which needs to be realized that what takes place within the European perspective is looking at the catastrophic elements of Black history, looking at when Africa was colonized and taken over in order to civilize the different African nations. There are three approaches that we need to incorporate and understand and look at the different sensitivities. Obviously the best one is the contributionism approach, looking at high culture and development, looking at science and technology, which Black and African people have done over the centuries. The next one is a survivalist. This actually looks at the time of slavery, looks at the disaster, which in Swahili is called the maafa, the destruction or the destructive element of the Black experience, not just in Africa, but also in the so-called New World. And the last one is the catastrophic, and this basically looks at different types of invasions, when groups of people from outside Africa came in to occupy that land. So we need to try to be as balanced as possible to give a more fruitful and more realistic approach to Black and African history as an example. The same type of objectives need to be taken if we're looking at Asian histories and those from minority ethnic groups also. Thank you very much for watching this promotional video, and hope you've benefited and been intrigued by some of the details and information which has been brought to your attention. And all I'd like to say is that individuals like myself are here to help with whatever we can do in order to improve your level of instruction and in order to develop a much better, culturally competent teaching staff, as well as pupils for the 21st as well as the 22nd century. Thank you very much.